I am not perfect at getting through these seasons myself. I do tend to get very overwhelmed during these times. And there are some things that I have learned in my last 4 years of homeschooling that helped me get through these seasons a little bit smoother and a little bit better. So I'm going to share those with you today. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Calm in the Chaos Homeschool. If you're new here, my name is Davine, and I'm homeschooling 4 kids ages 12, 12, 13, and 15. They are in 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade this year. If you like videos on homeschooling, homeschool curriculum, tips, tricks, advice, things like that, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Today's topic is homeschooling through the busy times or the busy seasons. And obviously, that is a topic that I'm talking about right now because we are entering into a very busy season for most of us. So today's video is also a collaboration hosted by myself and Shauna from Homegrown Homeschool. I will link in the description box below a link to a playlist. If you'd like to check it out, there's going to be a lot of homeschool moms sharing their tips and advice on how to make it through busy seasons. So check that out. I know I will. I am not perfect at getting through these seasons myself. I do tend to get very overwhelmed during these times. And there are some things that I have learned in my last 4 years of homeschooling that helped me get through these seasons a little bit smoother and a little bit better. So I'm going to share those with you today. Okay, so I think I have 3 general tips for you today. So I'm going to start with number 1. Number 1 is know your priorities. That is so important. You need to know what is important to you and to your family and what are of most important. You cannot have a million, priority is usually one, but let's say you make a list from top to bottom of your priorities and pick the top 3 or something and focus on those. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to do things in the upcoming months, and you need to know if these are things that you should be doing because they are in line with your worldview, with your vision of you and your family, your vision of you and your homeschool, things like that. And that will help you maybe say no to some things that are not priorities to you and keep some of the stuff that keeps trying to crowd into your life out of your life. All right, so some examples of things that could be priorities. I just made a list: family and friends, traditions, school, consistency, special memories, hosting events, gifts, things like that. So for me, I feel like my priorities are family and friends. So time with family and friends. Consistency is very important to me. It's always important to me, both in our home, in our school, things like that. I really thrive on consistency. Of course, it's nice to have an event here and there, but I get very easily overwhelmed with a bunch of different things. So consistency is a huge priority for me, as well as some traditions. Now, even when it comes to traditions, what traditions are important to you? Maybe you have a bajillion traditions and some are more important than others. And maybe some traditions are not of high value to you, and maybe it's time that you weed them out. I don't know. I'm just saying. So, what are your priorities? Make a list of your priorities, and then when things are coming up during the season, look at your priorities and say, is this consistent with what I said I prioritize? Now, I'm going to give an example of something that has opened up a lot of space in my life, and I'm just fully realizing it right now as this is the 2nd year of a change that we made in my home. Now, if you have been around here a while, you might know that we are Christians, and I am not sharing this to say that all Christians should do this, that if you're a Christian and you don't do what we do, you are wrong, that you're not listening to God, blah, blah, blah. I'm not sharing this at all for that. I hope you don't feel judged, and I hope you don't feel like I am telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what I have done that has made a change in my life when it comes to this season. So I'm going to say this season for me of stress and additional things that get piled into my life start in October, November, December. And one of the things that I have really struggled with ever since, I would say mostly once I started having kids, but I've always kind of wondered about for a while, is celebrating, participating, I don't know, in Halloween. So I have always kind of struggled with that. If you didn't know, I grew up in Taiwan, and in Taiwan, there are some different things that they do there. And Halloween was not something that we really did at all. And then Thanksgiving even was like, maybe it's Canadian Thanksgiving, maybe it's American Thanksgiving. So we do a Thanksgiving, but it didn't really matter when it was because we were just with other like missionaries. And then Christmas, we celebrated as a family. And commercially in Taiwan, they do celebrate it, but it's very different there. And growing up 20 years ago in Taiwan, it was very different. So Halloween is something that I've always kind of like, not always, but like have struggled with as an adult, as a Christian adult. I felt like there's a lot of emphasis put on it, and it is a lot of fun. The kids get dressed up. I understand like people wanting to get out into the community and see their neighbors, and I understand all the viewpoints that people have when it comes to participating or not participating in Halloween. But I was feeling every single year more and more convicted by God that that was not for our family. However, I had kids that were used to participating in all of it. And it was very hard to come to the decision where it was like, okay, I think we're going to stop. And then what? To what extent? Like, that's still a fine balance. Very hard for me to figure out. But I did finally, last year was our first year of not participating, I would say as much, not putting an emphasis on it, not focusing on it as much, not putting my time and effort into getting costumes, making sure we had candy, making sure we carved pumpkins, all these different things that I didn't really prioritize. And my October is so much more peaceful. If we want to go to the pumpkin patch, we can. That's fun. I love pumpkin flavored treats. Like, we can still do those things. We can still go on field trips, but I don't feel like I have to do all these things. I give my kids $20. They go buy what they want for, like, they can use it to buy new clothing. They're older now, right? So they're 12 and up. So they can buy new clothing. They can spend some of it on candy. I actually buy some candy for them from Costco. So I just give them a bunch of candy so they don't miss out on that. But we're just doing it a little differently. And an unexpected benefit has been my mental capacity has been opened up a lot more during this month. Because, like I said, extra events, extra things stress me out. So it's still a balance on what we do. For example, Halloween night, we are still going to our church grandpa and grandma's house. What we used to do before we went trick-or-treating, instead we just don't get dressed up. We just go and we hang out and we have a meal with them, and we get to see all the people who come to their house, and the kids watch a movie, and I just get to hang out. And it's just a lot more peaceful and serene and quiet, and I just like it so much more. And then the effects of that night are not so strong in my kids the next day, the following day. My kids are not as affected by, like, I don't know, all the excitement or whatever's happening on that day. And we can be more consistent with school and stuff like that going forward. So that is just an example of prioritizing. And like I said, I don't want that to come across as you should do what I'm doing. This is just what I felt was right for my family based on what I felt God was telling us to do. So please don't be mad at me. Don't yell at me. Yeah, I'm just sharing how prioritizing and deciding what is a priority to you and your family can open up a lot of benefits. Okay, so number two. Number two is something that is so crucial to me, is having a schedule. Now, that might be as controversial as the Halloween thing. For some people, a schedule means a horrible thing that tells you what you must do, when you must do it, and it's like a timed thing, and you have to do things exactly when it's said. So for me, a schedule is a time budget, a budgeting of your time. It's a realistic look at what you want to accomplish in a typical or ideal week. You put those things onto your schedule, into your life, And you know that those are the consistent things that you are trying to do. In a normal week, you should be able to accomplish these things. Within your schedule, there should be gaps, or there should be more time allotted for each activity than is necessary. You should not be packing your schedule. You should be realistic on how long does it take and adding margin for each of those items, because things always take longer than you expect. So I'm going to put my example of my schedule below so you can see what my schedule, or a video showing my schedule below, just so you can see what my schedule looks like. But to me, having a schedule helps me know that when other priorities, other events, when things pop up, I have to put it in my week. I can't just shove it in there and say, oh yeah, we can do it all, plus we can add in this 2 or 3 hour thing on that day. No, if there's a 2 or 3 hour thing that's going to happen on that day, I need to figure out, where is that going to go? What can I move so that that can happen? So here's an example from last week. Last week, my daughter had a training that she needed to go to on Tuesday morning from I think it was 9:30 to 10:30, and it was half an hour away. So that was going to take 2 hours in our morning. Now on Tuesday, normally we have group time. So I'm usually homeschooling at home. So we will have about an hour of independent work for each kid. We'll have about 2 hours of group work, and then the kids go back and do more independent work, and then we have stuff in the afternoon. But this is going to happen now on Tuesday, and I'm going to be driving for about an hour. So half an hour there, half an hour back, and I'm going to have to bring my boys with me. So I have to decide, what can I do on that day realistically? So on that day, I decided that we would do what we typically do when we're driving to this location. We do this on Mondays and Wednesdays. We're going to do the same thing for school while we're driving. So while we're driving, we're going to be listening to our history. We're going to be listening to our audiobook. So that's 1 hour of the 2 hours. And then we have 1 hour with my boys, 1 hour my daughter's in training, and those 1 hour with my boys. What can they realistically do during that 1 hour? So I decided that I was going to plan the 5-day week. I was only going to give them 4 days of independent work, and I wasn't going to worry about group time on Tuesday. So they had 4 days of independent work. They have 5 days to complete it in, one Tuesday, which is kind of crazy. And so they could just work ahead on some of their independent work. And so they could get some stuff done. They could work ahead a little bit, so that would make the rest of the week easier, but they could still get stuff done. And for my daughter, I had to take out 2 hours of whatever work that she might have been doing on that day to make up for that drive time and that activity that she was doing. So for me, a schedule basically makes me realize that you can't just shove things into your life. You have to put them somewhere, and that means you have to take something out. And so that is a value of a schedule for me. So that is my second piece of advice. Have a schedule of some sort. Know what your typical ideal week looks like. Third piece of advice is be flexible. Be flexible, and I just showed an example of being flexible. Do look at each week. Do look at each month. Look at the season and decide what is reasonable based on what things you're adding during that time. Maybe you need to stop a few subjects. Maybe there's something that you're doing consistently during the season. Maybe you want to do field trips every Friday for 2 months because that's super important to you, and there's a lot of traditions and special memories that you want to make. Or maybe you want to be baking cookies, or you want to be hosting parties and you need to clean the house or whatever during this time. Be flexible. And I think having that schedule and knowing what you typically do will help you to be flexible. So you got to take Friday. Okay, I'm taking Friday off. So what am I going to do with my other stuff? Am I going to just keep every other day the same? Do I want to take out a certain subject? And so maybe we're not going to do science, or we're not going to do history for a few months because I need this Friday time open, and we'll do the extra language arts or extra math. That depends on your priorities. Or maybe I'm just going to just take Fridays off for that month, but I know I'm going to come back to doing my typical week after the season is over. Or maybe there's something else that you're going to be doing, like maybe you want to be doing Christmas schooling. A lot of people like to do that. So if you're adding in a unit study or you're adding in Christmas schooling, How much time is that going to take? When are you going to do that? What are you going to take out? Because it's not going to be very restful and peaceful if you cram in a new curriculum and then expect your kids to do all the old curriculum at the same time. You're going to need to take things out. Are you going to completely stop all of your other schoolwork and you're going to just do this unit study? I guess that would depend on how long that unit study is, but you need to be realistic about how long it's going to take and know what you want for that season of time in your homeschool. Now, I do have older kids, like I said, 12 and up. So we're middle school and high school. And so to me, it is very important to remain consistent and be doing schoolwork. And my kids are ones that do backtrack and lose information very easily. So for me, having smaller, shorter days versus taking full days off or completely like stopping a curriculum, starting a new curriculum, works better for me. So if I were to do holiday schooling, which I don't always do, but like Christmas schooling, I would do just a little bit every day, maybe start early and just take out something light that we were doing already and add that in. I would not be stopping on math, language arts, things like that, because for me, a priority is being consistent and just keep going, keep moving forward, small pieces at a time. So I hope that those 3 pieces of advice are helpful. So once again, it was prioritize, know what your priorities are, make a list, pick your top 3, evaluate each event, each thing that you're being asked to do, each thing as it comes in, and look and see where is that on your list. Like, is that a top priority, or is that something that maybe it's time to stop and to drop and not to add to your life? Number 2, know your typical ideal schedule so that you can change it. It's not so that you're stuck with it, but then you can change it and you can see what you're taking out when you're putting something in and making sure that that is a priority for you during this season. And number 3, be flexible. Don't expect to keep your schedule and keep adding and jamming things. Be flexible. What are you going to take out in order to replace with this new item? What does this next week really look like? As I'm visualizing this next week, what are some things that might come up that might cause us to need to make some changes? Think ahead, plan ahead, decide on how you can be flexible, make those adjustments either before you start the week or during the week as necessary. I typically like to look ahead. I like to anticipate where the hardships are going to be and adjust and lighten the load ahead of time, because my kids do not react well to change. So if they know ahead of time what's coming, it works a lot better than, oh, this is too crazy, too much, now I'll take something away. So that just works better for our family. I hope these tips are helpful. Thank you so much for coming today. If you are looking for a safe Facebook group that has some amazing people in it, I haven't talked about my Facebook group for a while. I will link that below if you want to join. I'm very careful about who I let in. I don't just accept everyone. I mean, if you apply and you answer the questions, I will accept you. But I don't accept random people who don't answer the questions. So it's a very safe, small, peaceful, and very nice and supportive community. If you're looking for that, please check it out and join if you would like. And check out the playlist below to see what all the other homeschool moms are saying, what pieces of advice they have for you as you're coming into this busy season. Thanks so much for coming today, and I hope to see you all in a future video. Bye, everyone.